Good evening, everyone. I will now open up the Mashpee Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, April 20th, 2023. We are meeting here tonight in the Wacoit Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. Our meeting is being broadcast live on local cable channel 18, and it is also streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website. If you would please join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We do have a Commissioner, Aaron Copeland, who is online tonight, so when you do come up, if you would please speak clearly into the microphone so that she will be able to hear your presentations and your questions and comments. Thank you. The first thing I will do is ask for public comment for any issues that are not related to agenda items that we have posted for this evening. If there's anybody here in the public that would like to comment on something not on the agenda. Seeing none, I will move to the pre- and post-hearing agenda items first. The first thing we have is the approval of meeting minutes for March 23rd, 2023. And those people that will be voting on accepting those minutes will be Paul Colombo, Alexandra Zola, who's not here, Aaron Copeland, Steve Cook, and Marjorie Clapprood. So I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes of 3:23, if one is there.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the minutes of March 23rd.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any discussion on the motion that we have on the floor? Seeing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Aaron? Yes. I vote yes as well. Motion carries. The second set of minutes is for our last meeting, April 6, 2023. And voting on those minutes will be Paul Colombo, Aaron Copeland, Stephen Cook, Marjorie Clapprood, and Sandra Godfrey. If there is a motion, I would accept that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the minutes of April 6th.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any discussion on the motion to accept those minutes? Hearing none. Steve?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes as well. Motion carries unanimously. Do you want to hold true on the
Yeah,
rest of these for now and go into the hearings?
yeah.
That makes
might as well.
sense.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to call the first hearing, the 6 o'clock hearing for Timothy W. Leadham, trustee for Shoestring Bay Nominee Trust 2, 352 Mashpee Neck Road. This is a proposed gravel parking area, relocation of shed, landscaping, and mitigation plantings. The representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is a notice of intent. There has been a request for a continuance by the applicant to May 4th. Do we have a time?
6:15 PM.
6:15. So I would accept a motion to continue this to May 4th at 6:15.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote since I've known the Leadhams for a number of years.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, we still have 4 voting.
I'm happy to make the motion.
Thank you, Marjorie. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sandra. Any discussion on the motion to continue this hearing to May 4th? Hearing none. Marjorie, your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Sandra?
Yes.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. That motion carries. Our next hearing is the 6:03 hearing for Ryan and Kristen Lenhart, 81 Bluff Avenue. This is a proposed raise and replace existing dwelling, upgrade septic system with a new IA Title V system, landscaping and hardscaping. The representative is Cape and Islands Engineering, and this is a notice of intent. Good evening.
Good evening, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant Ryan and Kristen Leonard for a notice of intent for a project at 81 Bluff Ave in Mashpee. So tonight, we filed a notice of intent to raise and replace the existing dwelling at 81 Bluff, and including an upgraded septic system, patio, and the septic system will have an IA component added to it. The existing conditions is the plan on the left side of the site plan. That is a separate existing conditions. You'll see it's an existing dwelling. There's a paved driveway that exists, a gravel driveway behind or next to the existing garage, detached garage, with a deck in the back. The resource areas for the property, this is a flood zone only project. It is in the AE 13 flood zone. There's existing lawn, fully developed property in Papaneset, neighboring houses on each side and as well in the rear and the corners. The proposed project is on the right side of the plan. It's a new dwelling. Key component of it will be the finished floor at elevation 14. As you'll see, the existing house is at 12.8, so to meet current flood zone standards, needs to be 1 foot above the 13 base flood elevation. So the house has to come up just a modest 1.2 feet. You'll see just go around, the existing paved driveway is being replaced with stone, so the pavement is being removed. There is some minor grading throughout the property to achieve these elevations we need, particularly the 14-foot. You'll see along the front is a retaining wall that's about 1 foot high along the front of the property. There is a couple stairs up to the front entrance, and then the wall does return along the house to some more stairs to a side entrance. Again, all these components are about 18 inches to 2 feet tall. And then in the back is a fully upgraded new septic system with IA technology. There is a patio and just a few other things to note. I know this is conservation, but all the 2 sides and rear setbacks are being improved to meet zoning. So the house is better centered on the site. The actual footprint of structure, when you compare the existing house and garage to the new house, is actually smaller. With this upgrade to the house, the becoming flood compliant, using relatively minimal grading and things like that, everything within 1 foot or 2, it matches the characteristics of the neighborhood. The 2 houses to the northeast appear to have gone through the same process to become flood compliant as well. We do believe that the project meets the performance standards of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Town of Mashpee bylaws, and believe it's worthy of an order of conditions. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. I think I'll turn it over to commissioners first that may have questions or comments, concerns.
I have nothing at the moment.
Nothing? Marjorie?
Not at this point. I think I'm gonna
Okay.
wait.
Sandy?
I like this property. I've walked around it a couple times. It's a great street.
I'm a little concerned with the retaining walls, with floodwater coming in and then hitting those retaining walls and going across the street to the lower lying. There was a little small, original-looking cottage.
I mean, this is an AE flood zone. It's basically storm surge that could be affected by this. Wave action, we're hundreds of feet to the water and stuff. There really won't be wave action per se, and it's not something we would typically design to or be concerned with being this far from the actual coastline. And there's nothing prohibiting walls of this size for a project at this site.
Anything else, Sandy, or? Aaron, do you have questions or comments?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Okay. Mark, I'm going to follow up on the retaining wall. I believe they're 24 inches from grade?
Yeah, the ones in front are less than 24 inches. There is one along the back that varies from, basically blends into existing grade. That there is a corner that is 30 inches. On average, they're about 18 inches.
Right. And not that it has anything to do with your proposal, but when I was on that site, the lot directly behind it that's being constructed, there's retaining walls there. And there's a retaining wall just above this property, some type of a patio that's built up on a wall structure. But what I did notice the first thing I did was I walked down to the shore. And I looked at the two properties that are on the same side of the street as this one, and there are absolutely no retaining walls whatsoever. So if there were any type of a coastal flowage, it's coming straight up that street, and it's going to hit the first retaining wall, which technically isn't there, but would be if we approve this. Any water that were to hit that wall, based on the existing topography that I looked at, will send that water directly across the street to 86 Bluff Ave. And that's just, I didn't take a transit. I'm just looking at the topography and the layout. I also noticed that none of those houses on that street have dry wells. Almost every gutter that comes down is just dissipated out onto the street. There are no drains in the street. So when I see the configuration of retaining walls literally surrounding the entire property, I have a lot of concerns that this is going to divert any potential storm flow onto somebody else's property. I don't see how it possibly could not. So I'm a little uncomfortable with the walls. I looked at the rest of the project. It all looks pretty good. It's a smaller footprint. Makes sense to me, but those walls don't make any sense to me at all. And the minor grading that you had mentioned, I'm not quite sure, how do you define minor? I mean, what is actually going to be regraded, and to what elevations are those grades going to finalize at? Because I know when I went down to the backyard where that existing deck is, there's quite a difference in elevation from the seaward side of the property to the upward, the landward side of the property. I would say it's a couple of feet anyways.
So, can I respond? The walls on, if you're looking at the plan, on the right side of the plan and the south side, so the walls that could be the first contact of flood, I mean, they're 2 feet from an existing house. The existing conditions, those waves are just going to hit an existing house, habitable space, existing house anyways, And again, I kind of disagree with just wave action being a condition here this far from the water. This is storm surge. This isn't a velocity zone. I just disagree that the wave action will be a problem. And anyways, these waves are hitting an actual habitable space of a house if, under the existing conditions today. There's the same vertical structures. There's even more. There's between the existing house and the garage that's there, there's even more length of this condition. I disagree with the impact that these walls make to the flood condition. And regarding grading, I'm calling between 1 and 2 feet of grades, which is over 80% of the site, as minimal. Correct. The bottom left corner is about an existing grade of 6, and it is about 30 inches behind, if you walk the site, behind the shed where the gravel is. That's where we dug a test pit to find groundwater. Yes, that is about 30 inches, but then it comes right up. You'll see that existing 8 contour there where the wall ends.
Yes.
It's about 25 feet of wall on that southern side or southeastern side. There could be an effort to, just the septic system alone, to upgrade it to current Title V septic requirements. Basically triggers that wall around that corner of the property. We found groundwater this isn't per se the septic permit plan, but we found groundwater at about 5 feet of separation, plus a system puts the elevation up to 9 and 10, and we're sloping down as much as we can from that system location. Just the system itself requires a wall. So that for that bottom portion of the site, could we remove on the upper left side, a good 20 or 30 feet of wall? That we could maybe look at that. But again, that's on the other side, away from the last part of any kind of floodwater. So that is the basis of the design.
Mr. Chairman, if I could follow up?
Sure.
Sure. So,
Wait a
2
second.
questions.
Hold on
Oh,
one
yeah.
sec. Are you
Yeah.
okay? All right.
Thank you.
So, Mark, you mentioned about the septic system, brand new septic system. So how come that wasn't in this plan that showed cross-sections of septic and height to groundwater and the reason why you need walls around that septic system?
This was a conservation-related plan. It does show the final grading. It shows the required details for conservation.
But typically on
just-
septic, when we do septic upgrades and require approval from this board, there's usually cross-sections and details. So I would think.
We can provide that if that's a
Okay.
request.
Then on a construction-related issue, I'm looking at the grades, and you're talking about grades and retaining walls. And you had mentioned that this building's going to meet flood zone compliance. So I'm having a hard time trying to understand where your flood vents are going to go. Because if you have the first floor dwelling at 14, and you have a floor system about a foot or so, I expect the top of the foundation's going to be at 12.8 or at 13, because it looks like the flood elevation's at 13. So with all the walls around it, I don't see where the flood vents would be located.
Right now, there might be a very minimal crawl space, but there is no basement per se. There could be some flood vents around the bottom left corner where we have an elevation 10.6 around that part of the building, but right now, there's no proposed basement, and potentially only a 2-foot crawl space for some piping and things like that.
Right,
there's-
but
there's-
you have grades at 12.5 on the west side. You have patio at 12.8. I see a 10.6 grade, and I see 12.2, 12, 12.2 on the north and east sides. So
Yeah, I mean, the project will meet-
physically, I don't know how you can put in flood vents with those grades.
The project will meet the requirements. If it's built as a slab on grade, it's a slab on grade. That is, this house will meet the requirements. Again, there are some adjacent grades at 10.6, 11.6. If your flood vents just above, a foot above those grades, you could potentially fit enough in there to have a slab at 10.6 with a small crawl space, but otherwise,
Yeah, but if you have your, existing grades at 10 out in the street, and you're going to be 12.2 at the house, why do we need retaining walls? And can't the grade just flow naturally, taper down without retaining walls? Then eliminates any issues that was previously discussed with storm flowage. And then you'll have enough space to install the flood vents properly.
if that's a request, we can take a look at that. Along the lower property line, that existing pavement is quite low. You'll see the 10-foot contour there. So we were just removing pavement, adding stone for that area. But again, that's a 1-foot-high retaining wall along the street, similar to the two neighboring properties. They, that used for potential parking or something like that. But it's again AE flood zone over a few hundred feet away from the water. So that was the basis of the design.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Yep. Any other questions from the commissioners before I go out to the public? Hearing none. Anybody in the audience that would like to question or comment on this project? Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering. Just want to make the comment because lately we've been hearing this comment about displacing the ocean waters. When we're talking about the surge, the ocean flooding the coastal shores on the towns, the displacement of the ocean by this type of projects, it's ineligible. You can't really displace the ocean with this type of fills or with these retaining walls. When you think of the ocean as a surge from a major storm, hurricane, low depression, whatever, the whole ocean is coming up at a certain elevation. We can fill this whole lot 10 feet, and that volume will not displace the ocean. This is different than what happens when many years ago, the city of New Bedford built their seawall to protect the city. That protects squares of miles of a city. A lot of volume that suddenly does not inundate the city that is now held by the bay. This type of projects with these retaining walls, the thought of the displacement of the ocean water, I think it's a little different compared to displacement of kind of channelized flood waters or isolated flood areas, like further inland in the state, flood waters from rivers or some other enclosed flood waters. So I don't agree that this project displaces the flood waters from the ocean. If the ocean is coming here at an elevation of, say, elevation 13 to flood this, that 13, nowhere in the neighborhood, is going to increase to 13.1 to 13.05. The ocean with this project is not being, or the surge flood waters, it's not being increased. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none. Drew, would you like to comment on what we have?
Sure. Excuse me. So I did make a comment in that, I'll just go through, that I believe that the project overall is a good project. It's actually a net decrease in 62 square feet of structure compared to the existing home. Title V septic IA component is certainly an upgrade in terms of nutrient loading, reduction of pollution. paved driveway being turned into a pervious driveway. I did cite concerns about potential impacts to abutting properties in the event of flooding, localized or storm surges. And I do understand Raul's and agree with Raul's assessment of flooding. If this was velocity zone, I think you'd have a greater reason for being concerned, but it's not. And as going to Mark's comment about the existing foundation of the house and the rebuild of the foundation directly behind a retaining wall, what are you really talking about in terms of adverse impact to flood zone? So my other concern was about localized flooding, and I think as long as there's capture of any runoff from the roofs, driveway being converted to a pervious surface is going to contribute significantly to a reduction in runoff from the site. So overall, I think it should be issue to close an issue. I don't think it's going to adversely impact floodwaters from the ocean, because you're talking about a much grander scale in that scenario. If there's no real compelling need for retaining walls and it could be a tapered grade, I think that would be something that sounds like the commission would prefer. So unless there's a compelling need for retaining walls, why not just have a gentle sloping grade as opposed to the retaining walls, and eliminate any concern about diversion of floodwaters? So no other comments.
Thank you. Okay. So before I entertain any comment or any motion, would you be willing to go back and rework some of these retaining walls, include the septic profile, groundwater elevations, and the final grading for all of that work that's being done in the backyard? Because I'm having a hard time seeing it because it's not on the plan.
Can I have 1 minute? The owner is in the audience. And I can just-
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sidebar.
Okay, so yes, we will provide, definitely 100% provide the septic cross-section, things like that, and we will try to, the best we feel feasible, try to reduce some retaining walls on the site.
Great.
Therefore, we'd like to request a continuance.
Okay, terrific, thank you. Drew, do we have a date and a time?
This would be for May 4th at 6:18 PM.
5, 4, 6, 18?
Correct.
Okay. So I would accept the motion for a continuance to May 4th at 6:18 PM to give the applicant time to put together the information that we're requesting.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue the 6:03 hearing for Ryan and Kristen Lenhart, 81 Bluff Ave, to May 4th at 6:18 PM.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any discussion on the motion? And Mark, we're good with what you're coming back with? Any questions before I call for the vote?
Yeah, I mean, we'll provide the septic information.
The final grading in the back for the septic itself, how much
Yeah.
fill is going in there and what those grades are going to look like.
And,
And
yeah,
whatever you can do with the walls, maybe do it, as our agent mentioned, some type of a graded berm or something, I don't know.
okay.
Do the best you can. Okay. Then I'll call for a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops, sorry.
Should I wait?
Good.
Did I need permission for that?
No.
It's blinding me. Anybody else?
No, that's
You
why
were
we
the
have
sole
you
target of
seated.
the sunlight's,
I know.
Now calling the 6:06 hearing for Francis V. and Christine L. Castellucci, 23 Keel Way. This is a proposed raise and replace of an existing pool, shed, and utilities. The representative is Gade Masonry Landscaping, and this is a notice of intent. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Evening. My name's Joe Anastas. I'm a general contractor on the project. This is Felipe Nevers from Gade Masonry and Living Waters. He is actually the permit holder for this project with the pool. And we're here on behalf of Francis and Chrissy Castellucci. As a note, I have a building permit for the pool house and work on the home, which is under my purview, and we've gone out and filled all the requirements on the NOI, and I would turn it over to Felipe at this point.
Yes, good evening. After we did all the last requirement was the survey plan with the proposed, showing the proposed pool and deck, which is basically just a replacement what was existing wood decking, a rotten deck, and we're gonna replace that with a paver. And it just changed the, instead of a free-form pool into a rectangular shaped pool.
Saltwater.
It's saltwater one, exactly, with no chemicals.
That's it?
Well, that's basically what we propose is just removing, maintain the same blueprint of the property, no distress and disruption in any surroundings. Everything will maintain exactly the same as it was.
We were asked to go get a survey, which we've provided for the committee.
Thank you.
And did you say it's a saltwater pool?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'll open it up to the commissioners for questions or comments.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have to recuse myself because I have a personal relationship with some of the parties. You have a quorum, do you?
1, 2, 3, yes, I will.
Okay.
Sure.
Can I stay? Or do you want me to leave?
you can stay if you'd like.
Stay.
I'll stay and say nothing, which is not an easy feat for me.
Mr. Chairman, may I just add that we had already received a permit for this project,
A permit in regards to
the pool.
the pool, from the
Correct.
building department.
For the building department.
Correct.
Okay.
But not an NOI, right?
No.
No, he's talking about just building permit.
Building permit, okay.
Just a building permit. Okay.
Drew, could you go back to the photograph? Take a look at. Okay, so the area inside the silt fence, I haven't gone out there, that was already previously disturbed area? That was,
Well, with the exception of the piles of fill that you see there?
yeah,
Yeah, no, there's been no changes. There were a couple of trees that were requested to be removed completely separate from this project. They were assessed by an arborist to be deemed to pose a significant risk to the home. So those were removed or pruned. Aside from that, there's been no other site disturbances other than the in-place fill, which is temporary.
okay, that was all open,
Yeah, we required the
Understory.
silt fence to be put up when we realized the fill was close to the bank.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I didn't get a chance to stop out there
Yeah.
to see it, so, okay. Will that area where the sand piles are be restored back to?
Absolutely.
Yep.
What will it be?
So that'll be natural vegetation, and we are going to stay in the, around the pool area up to the house will be pavers, and pavers around the pool. I'm not exactly sure how many feet, but it's, will not impede on those sand piles that are there right now. They'll be back to where they're supposed to be.
It's basically just a mix of soil and moss
Yeah.
that was there previously.
Yeah, so,
And
okay.
trees. Yeah.
Okay, so it would just be replanted back again?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Something, yeah. Okay, great, thank you.
And the piles themselves, are you able to get a rig around the back of that to take those out? Or are those going to be used to backfill the pool, or?
Most of it will be used to backfill. And while we went, the time, it was just after we got all the approval permissions and inspections to start dig and build the pool. And then we have that notice order to stop the work. That's why we didn't haul it off, all that material. So we stopped right there. That's why we just like protect it and wait for, make through this.
And can you tell me about the, I don't know if it's a shed or a pool house, or what is that small building that?
It is a pool house. There was an existing pool house. We've
Right.
stayed in the footprint. It's just a different design. In fact, we are, there's no outside shower. There's a little kitchenette on the inside, a sink. And it has an overhang in the front, and it's approximately 13 feet away from the pool where it was existing. In fact, we're using the same heater, same meter, same everything.
All the same connections?
Yes,
The sink drains into the septic?
yes, yes.
So the 1,500 square feet that you have on here, does that include the shed as well, the pool house, or is that just the deck and the pool itself?
Well, the shed is right on to right up to the
patio itself.
The patio itself, yeah. In fact, it goes underneath the overhang of the patio, so. And there is some, along the house on both sides, there is some plantings, that it won't all be patio. There's a few areas of plantings.
And what is the maintenance plan for the pool for drawdown and repairs and just general?
Basically, is no chemicals on it, and if necessary, to remove the water, we just go with the water truck and remove it, if necessary. But
So any drawdown would be done through truck, off-site? Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Aaron? Okay. Questions from the public? Hearing none. Drew, I'll come back to you.
Not much to add. I think it's, we did check a previous plan. It was a Board of Health plan to take a look at the setback from the original pool. It's the exact same setback as what you see here proposed, so there's no further encroachment towards the resource area. It is just a straight-up replacement of what was previously existing in terms of the pool and patio. Let's see. I think that was pretty much all I had. No impact to Coastal Bank or any other coastal resource areas, as it's all going in the same previous footprint. And if the commission deems it so, we can make that a condition of approval that pool drawdown be facilitated by a pump truck. No pool water may be drained into any wetland areas at any time on the property, or any wetland areas in general. Any disturbed areas outside the project footprints must be returned to their previously existing conditions. Any replaced or restored lawn area, which I don't think there was really much lawn back there, it was mostly just kind of exposed soil with scattered grass and moss. But any lawn would have to adhere to lawn standards, so if there is lawn proposed, you'd need to make that known. If not, we'll assume it's going to be returned to.
Yeah, I
its
believe it's
previous-
just going to be a natural.
Okay, so that could be also a condition.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I would accept the motion, if there is one.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we issue and close for Francis V. and Christine L. Castellucci, 23 Keel Way, with the conditions that any pool drawdown be facilitated by a pump truck, no pool water drain into any wetland areas at any time, and any disturbed areas be returned to its previously existing conditions per Regulation 31 standards.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Discussion on the motion that we have on the floor by commissioners. Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Steve?
Yeah, yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Now calling the 609 hearing for Todd A. West, 362 Monomoskoye Road. This is a proposed septic upgrade to an innovative alternative system. Representative is Meyer and Sons Incorporated. This is a RDA. Good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening. Darren Meyer here, representing Todd West, the owner of the property at 362 Monomoskoye Road. What we have here is just a simple upgrade of a failed septic system. Mr. West is the new owner of the property. What we've proposed is a denitrification system. The property currently is a 3-bedroom dwelling. The new owner would like to propose an increase in flow to 5-bedroom capacity. There is no current proposal to do any work at the property. He would just like to have the available flow for future potential work that he may want to do. The property itself is in an AE 11 flood zone, so all the work would be subject to storm flowage. All the work will be outside the 100-foot buffer zone from the Great River. And we provided mitigation there. And what we proposed is a singular denitrification system with a pump chamber and a 5-bedroom capacity leach field, pipe and stone. There will be some disturbance of wooded areas up where the leaching is. The tank, the denitrification system and the pump system are in like a grass, I wouldn't say landscape, but an open area that wouldn't be really any disturbance for those components. Happy to answer any questions you might have regarding this.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to commissioners first.
No questions.
The only question that I have, do we have the Board of Health report? I don't seem to have found it. Are they weighing in on the issue of the increase in the bedrooms, even though they don't have a drawing yet, right? You have no architectural drawing.
I can speak.
Right, it's just a proposed
Just want to make sure.
extra capacity at this point. There's no proposed work
Okay.
at this time.
Drew, you want to address that?
So there are Board of Health comments on this, that septic plans and existing floor plan to be reviewed upon submission to Board of Health, but in speaking with the health agent today, he said that not only have they been submitted, they've been approved. Is that correct?
The plans?
Yes.
From my understanding, yeah.
Yeah.
They allow you to submit the plans without a permit to
Yeah.
be reviewed and approved.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
he has, despite the comments that were submitted earlier this week, as of today, he has received the plans and approved them. Board of Health agent. So, good to go. with Board of Health.
Good to go, 5 bedrooms, and we're good with the septic in terms of
Well,
its,
increased flow for 5 bedrooms, it's not an approval of 5 bedrooms because there's no change to the existing footprint of the house.
Right.
This is just in anticipation of that happening at some point in the future. So this
if
is.
they don't have any issues with it.
Nope, nope. They are fine with increasing the capacity for a 5-bedroom system, IA component,
Right.
yep.
Any other questions or comments? Aaron?
No, thank you.
No? I've got a comment more than a question. So sometime in the future, the owner would be building a much larger home.
He hasn't even talked to me about what his proposal would be.
Right.
He did mention that he'd like the opportunity to be able to do that in the future. I think he wants to get into the property and use it and see
Sure,
what his needs
sure.
would be. And he commented on other properties in the area and that he likes, would like something similar.
Right. The reason I'm bringing it up, we just recently promulgated Regulation 30, which is a nitrogen loading regulation, and we have some very specific standards. So in the future, if your client were to come back and propose a much larger house with more flow, they're going to be under that regulation. There's a certain cutoff of nitrogen that will be allowed. So I don't know what the specifics are on the tank, what the outflow would be if it was at maximum capacity, how much nitrogen is actually coming out of the tank. Not only the tank, but any of the runoff, stormwater runoff, drains from the house. I mean, there's a lot to be considered in future development when you're looking at nitrogen loading. So just kind of throwing that idea out there.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Hearing none. Any other comments, Drew, that you'd like to make?
No other comment. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So you mentioned that there was going to be tree removal. but
Right.
I didn't see any specifics as far as where the trees are being removed. I see a couple of trees called out on the plan. Are those the ones that are proposed?
No, I could throw stakes on the corners of the leach field if you want to look at that.
Oh, so it's where the leach field is going?
Yeah.
That's where the tree, yeah.
And there may be a tree or two in the way of that pressure main from the pump to the leaching, but it's basically the footprint of the leaching. I put it up that high, that far, so it was close to the driveway for ease of install and to not disturb the driveway.
Sure.
So I don't know that he'll need much more than that footprint. I think there is some open area as well around there, but
Okay. And you mentioned earlier in your description that there was mitigation, but I don't see anything called out on the plan.
well, just the straw bales there on the corner from the corner. of
Oh,
the
that's what
property.
you meant by mitigation.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
work
right.
limits.
As
Okay.
far as the replanting of the trees, it's all wooded up there. I don't know where we would put them to replace what we take
They
out.
would go as close to the resource area as possible, so over existing lawn. I just want to get an idea of how many trees are being removed.
Sure.
As a result of this, and maybe, because you've got, with the area, what does the area look like between the house and the water? Is it fully vegetated?
I don't know off the top of my head.
So what is that, is there like, bring up the, say, you do
Yeah,
have
between the
all
house and the
wooded?
garage there is
Yeah.
all grass.
Okay. So just to get an idea of how many trees are being removed, and maybe there might be some opportunity for mitigation, depending on the number, but I just don't know how many.
I do know they're not a significant size. I mean, I'd be shocked if anything's over 9 inches. They're all scrub oak and whatnot, but I can do a count.
Okay. And that could be something we could follow up with as staff. I don't think it's going to be a significant issue, but I just wanted to get clarification.
Sure.
All right. What would be the time frame for staking that out?
I could do it Monday
All right.
Okay.
and report back on the number of trees inside the footprint,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I would entertain a motion on the RDA, if there is one.
Okay, yeah, Mr. Chairman, make a motion to for a negative determination on the RDA for Toddy West, 362 Monomoskoye Road. And just put in the note to have the applicant work with the agents to determine number of trees to be removed and trees to be replaced. Does that sound
Yeah.
reasonable?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Discussion amongst the commissioners for the motion that's on the floor. Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck. Now calling the 6/12 hearing for Jack Foster, Allison Poole Foster, and Lauren C. Foster, 31 Wheelhouse Lane. This is a proposed raise and replace existing dwelling, replace the pool and patio, new gravel driveway, landscaping, and hardscaping. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This is a notice of intent. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. For the record, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, and Andrew, the landscape architect from Yarmouth Design. This property, I hardly believe any of the commissioners know the story for the past 3 or 4 years, but Drew probably is the one that's most knowledgeable. So this property transferred ownership in about 2019, 2020. In the transfer, the septic system was deemed a failed system, and for the transfer, it was required to be upgraded. So in 2019, the Conservation Commission approved the septic upgrade. That septic upgrade was installed, I believe, in 2021, and it was signed off by the Health Department. The new owner, 2 years ago, applied for a notice of intent to do additions to the existing house. In particular, to connect a breezeway from the existing detached garage to the existing house and do some additions to the front of the house. When that order was approved and the new homeowner was gearing to do that work, it was found that the conditions of the existing house were not suitable for additions. And in fact, it was recommended for the entire house to be demolished and a new house be built. So that order condition is being asked to be closed without any action. And the homeowner is now asking for a complete raise and rebuild. So the order condition that was issued 2 years ago is going to be closed so that we can get a new order for a complete raise and rebuild. The resources are, there's a salt marsh within 100 feet. There is a salt pond, which is not usual, but there is a salt pond within 100 feet. Mean high water, I believe, is more than 100 feet, but there is mean high water not too far off. There's a coastal bank, and elevation 9 delineates the Wacoy Bay easy. The existing single-family dwelling residence, it's a 4-bedroom house. The detached garage is kind of to the south of the property. Behind the house, there's a deck, a pool patio, and a pool. The reconstruction or redevelopment of the site, it's kind of in keeping with what's there, except that the garage is going to be attached to the new house. Instead of the deck, there's going to be a patio. There's going to be a new pool. The existing spa is going to be removed, and the new spa is kind of integrated with the pool along the side of the pool. Currently, there's approximately 18% of the property that is naturally vegetated, and that's located to the bottom right corner of the image right here. The entire property is mapped within the flood zone. So although we don't have 25% of naturally vegetated areas, that 18% is being increased with the proposed native plantings in mitigation. The development, based on the calculations of mitigation requirements of the 10-foot and 5-foot increments, does not really require mitigation, but based on comparison just of overall existing to proposed, there is an increase in approximately 218 square feet of development. The proposed project will be planting 1,200 or plus square feet of mitigation plantings and restoration. So we're more than tripling what we're increasing by development on the project. The existing driveway is pervious. The proposed driveway is also pervious. We are proposing dry wells to control roof runoff. One of the dry wells will also be used for drawdown of the pool at the back. None of the proposed redevelopment get any closer to the wetland resources. In fact, the areas that are closest to the ACEC delineation and the salt marsh, which is the pool and the pool patio, are getting reduced. That is visible on the pool patios, specifically where we have a proposed dry well. That dry well is currently in an area that's currently patio. So overall, the whole project, it's a better project than what was approved 2 years ago. And if there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Andrew, do you want to go over the, well, I don't know if the commission has questions on that portion of the subsidy answer.
Yeah, let's see.
That's all right. They have it up there, so I could just look at it. Yeah, so the swimming pool is getting smaller. The existing swimming pool is about 580 square feet. It's also quite deep. The homeowner tells me it's 9 feet deep. We're replacing it between the spa and the new proposed pool. This is only 12 feet wide, this pool, and 29 feet long. Between the two of them, it's 400 square feet, so we're going from 580 square feet of pool down to 400 square feet. Currently, there's a concrete patio around the existing pool that's a solid concrete. I don't see any evidence of any kind of drainage structure for that. We're proposing to do a natural dry laid stone, and we have perimeter drainage at the north end. We're also pitching back from the pool toward the house and picking up drainage in front of the retaining wall. And then the patio that's adjacent to the house pitches also to perimeter drains. So it kind of looks like a little ladder as you look closely in the drawings. Those are all the channel drains picking up the drainage. The pool equipment is located where it currently is located. Obviously, it's going to have to be removed for construction and then put back. We have the air conditioning units and generator pad north of the house on the highest ground, so it's above the flood zone elevation. Rinse station is also at that end of the house. Just stepping stones to go around to the front of the house. As Raul mentioned before, the driveway is going to be a gravel driveway, pervious driveway. Through construction, we do need to remove 3 trees, 2 in front of the house shown with the red X's. In the corner of the landscape plan, I note the mitigation for that. So we're removing a 14-inch oak, a 16-inch pitch pine, and an 8-inch white pine that's extremely close to the existing garage. I think Drew might have even given permission to have that removed before, and it didn't get removed, but I don't want to speak for him. Compensation for those trees include a 2.5-inch caliper red oak that's in the front yard of the house toward the north end, and also 7 eastern red cedars that are planted along the southern property line. Drew met out there with me a couple of times, actually, and the mitigation that we're showing is infilling where there's really no understory south of along the south edge of that property line, or infilling underneath trees and between trees, and then chasing that down around to the southern side of the garage, where I mentioned about the eastern red cedars. So we have a good variety of plants. I'm using the spacing per the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension, and the selections are based on that, as well as site conditions to match what should be there. So we have northern bayberry, sweet pepper bush, inkberry, northern arrowwood, the eastern red cedar, and the red oak. And these are significant shrubs. This isn't the usual creeping stuff to stay out of a view. And we also have some bayberry along the north property line and some inkberries on the north property line a little closer toward the street. Raul mentioned about the dry wells and such. I think I mentioned that the pool is shallower. The other pool, the homeowner told me, is 9 feet. This will be 6 feet deep. And it's pretty much inside of the existing footprint of the footprint of the existing pool. It goes outside of it slightly. And let's see. And we have stepping stones connecting the driveway on both sides of the house rather than solid walkways. And we're kind of following the natural grade on the south side of the house, which also gives us the opportunity underneath the sunroom to have the flood vents that were mentioned in one of the earlier hearings. So there is opportunity to flood vents, and the grade is kept purposely low underneath that sunroom, and so that the floodwater can naturally recede to the south from underneath that sunroom. And there'll be flood vents on the other side of the south side of that building as required, but that'll be able to naturally drain out by gravity on the surface. We're also showing, there was some rotten tie timber retaining and steps, and I'm showing more of a new fieldstone or modular block retaining wall along the stepping stones that go to the gate that go to the existing pier that's actually off-site. Yeah, if you can kind of, it's not on the plan, but you can see the path going to it. So those stepping stones replace some rotten timber steps, and there was also a rotten timber wall that ran along the south side of those stepping stones that go from that area around to the front of the garage. So we're using an inert material rather than pressure-treated or other material. And that, I think, open to questions after that.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it to the commissioners first for any questions that you might have.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, so a couple of questions. Is I noticed in the notes there's a 1,302 square foot increase. Is that just for the house alone, or does that include all the patios and removals of decks or so forth?
Is that the mitigation calculations?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the, this is, mitigation is 4342, and is, per the calculation proposed is 8290, which is great.
You're looking at a different hearing. This is.
Is wrong. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Wrong one.
wheelhouse.
Oh, I'm the one up ahead, okay, sorry. Okay, so that's, okay. Sorry about that. Okay. No, I'm good then, so that's where I got mixed up.
Okay. Marjorie?
Well, I just have a question. I'm a little confused. It might be me, but the Board of Health talks about the bedrooms and the septic system. Current one allows for 4 bedrooms, and a suggestion that this proposed raise and replace, even though it's minor, if it does, if it's anticipated that it's going to be more, or there are rooms that could serve as a bedroom, that there be a change in the septic system. Can you just review for me one more time,
Right.
if I missed it, what the septic system is that you're proposing in this?
So the system that was installed when the property was transferred, as a requirement of the transfer, is a 4-bedroom, which is the approved bedroom count for the existing, and is still the proposed bedroom count for this reconstruction. So there's no increase in wastewater flow.
So there won't be any change at all in the,
Well, the house is changing, but there's
no,
no.
no, the house is changing, but for the septic?
Right, so there's no increase in flow for the septic, right. No increase in flow to the septic means the septic doesn't change.
Right, right, right. So have you submitted the floor plan to the Board of Health? Is there an update on that?
Nope, when it gets filed for building permit and Board of Health permits, that will be filed, yes.
So I'm just curious, Mr. Chairman, I know we've gone over this and everybody thinks I'm a pain in the neck about this, but there's just a real concern with the current septic, what we're all familiar with, the 4-bedroom with the current, but it's a 5-bedroom, it would have to be upgraded, right? So why not upgrade it now, or
Well, it's
make it
from-
subject to, make it just subject to the Board of Health signing off on a floor plan that did not include the 5th bedroom?
The proposal has nothing to do with the septic. That's out of the proposed work area. It's a 4-bedroom septic. And once the house is designed, if they are going to go larger, they would have to come back for an amended order, and they would have to propose
They would.
a whole new septic layout, and that would be up to our purview to either approve or disapprove based
Okay.
on what's presented. But as of right now, we're just looking at the pool, the house,
Yep.
the garage.
I was just confused. So
Right.
if there was anything that the Board of Health said that I didn't see, tell me.
Right, I know, because at the beginning of the presentation, Raul started off with a lot of information about the septic system, so it's easy to kind of buy into
Yeah,
this
yeah,
as part of
I
the
know.
project, but it's
It
not.
was sort of a weird history that I wasn't quite catching, so I appreciate the clarification.
And if I can also add, so this project is going to go before Board of Appeals because of the same
Yes.
reasons of many other projects. It's completely in the flood zone, no setback, no 50-foot setback, compliance with wetlands and so forth. That's another opportunity where the health department can also weigh in on the review. For that application, floor plans are submitted. That's usually when the health department first review the floor plans. If the health department and the health agent sees that, in his opinion, there is more than 4 bedrooms, then yes, the health department has the right to require this septic system to be upgraded.
Yeah.
Or simply say 5 bedrooms are not approvable, and they have to scale back to 4.
Yeah.
Right now, the whole project is for 4-bedroom, period.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good, yep.
Sandy?
I just had a curiosity question. Is the existing chain link fence staying, or are you replacing that?
Yeah, that, I believe it's going to stay. We have no plan to change that fence. The only part that we're changing is on the ends of the house where it will have a privacy fence that would go from the house to that existing chain link fence at the north of the house, and on the back corner of the garage. Actually, it currently goes from the back corner of the garage as I believe it's a wooden fence to the chain link fence. There's going to be a new section of fence there to complete the pool enclosure. But right now, there's no plan to change the chain link.
That's it.
Okay.
Aaron, do you have any questions or comments?
No, Marjorie clarified the one I had about the septic. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And Raul, all these pressure-treated timbers that are along the pool itself, those are coming out or staying in?
Those are going to stay.
Those are staying?
Yeah, the concrete's going to be removed from behind there, and we're going to back up just a little bit from that But that's going to stay, I just don't want to disturb that slope.
They look like they're in pretty good shape when I was on
Yeah,
the site.
and I just don't think it makes sense to disturb that edge.
And all the rotted timber that you had mentioned over by the stairway leading out to the path, there's also some additional rotted timber as you come around the front on the coastal bank. Is that all coming out, or is that staying? You're just going to leave it alone?
As you come around the side of the house now, they've used them like look like maybe steppers or
It's like a
something.
terrace type of thing, and they're all
Yeah,
rotted. There's a bunch
they're
of
coming out.
daffodils in there.
They're coming out.
They're coming out.
Yeah.
So you'll actually be on that coastal bank doing work.
So the proposed pavers are following the top of the coastal bank on the plan,
The pavers.
shown on the site plan.
Not sure
So
what
yeah,
it
that's
means.
south side. So the top of the coastal bank is following that edge of the pavers going from the front driveway to the back of the property.
Right. But if you see at the very corner of the pool up there, where it says top of coastal bank, W5, right where that arrow is pointed, I believe there's a whole series of timbers right in there that are all rotted as well.
Oh, I don't.
Where is that now?
Where it says top of coastal bank,
Oh, there is an old sort of retaining structure. It's like a boxed in between those two
Yeah.
trees.
right.
It straddles the
It's on
property
the
line.
plan. It's shown right
Yeah,
there.
it straddles the
there,
property
Right in
line.
there, right.
A little, that one right there where the mouse is right on top right now. It
Yeah.
shows like a little C shape.
It's kind of, yeah, it's like a V, and it's all
Yes.
rotted timbers, it's a bunch of
we gonna move
daffodils
that?
around it.
Are
Is
we
that
gonna
coming
move
up?
I don't have specific plan to remove it. We can remove it if you would like to, but it wasn't really addressed in this.
Well, I just saw it, and I thought, well, I imagine this is going to be part of what they'll be cleaning up.
Yeah, I mean, if
Looks like it's outside.
if it's not a problem for you, we
It
would be
does.
glad to take it away.
I think there's some stuff that is outside that work limit line.
I do remember it. At the moment, we did not anticipate doing anything with it, and I think the chain link fence goes through it. So if
Yeah.
we,
Yeah,
if we do work with it, we'll work with the chain link fence.
And part of that fence looked pretty shaky to me. I mean, if you're going to be going in doing this kind of work, it would make all the sense in the world to put a new fence up.
Yeah, I'll talk to the homeowners about that. I've been working on this project a really long time, so I don't recall what our discussion was about that earlier on, and it just kind of has been left out of discussion recently, but I certainly could pursue that if they want to change it. Would that be something we could have Drew review if, at the time they want to change that?
I would think so.
Yeah. And we have an automatic cover on the pool, so we're not, it's not a problem to keep the bottom of the fence elevated for any wildlife to go underneath because we have the enclosure based on the automatic cover.
And did I hear you say that you were going to use that dry well configuration for drawdown of the pool?
So, right, the dry wells are being both used for rain runoff for the patio, but also when needed for drawdown of the pool, for winterizing or what have you. We have two adjacent dry wells that the pool could be drained into. Not a complete drawdown. This is a lot of gallonage, so a complete drawdown
It's a big
with,
pool. You'd have to-
right, but for the winter, I
Although-
think it is dropped by I think it's 1 foot.
Do you have a groundwater elevation underneath these dry wells?
It's 2.5.
So the plan has a soil log, and elevation is 2.5 for groundwater.
The elevation of the ground where those two
Yeah.
leach pits are is
About
just under
10?
elevation 10,
Yeah.
just a hair under elevation 10. And they're 4 feet, right?
Right.
There's 4-foot depth to the...
4-foot depth.
It's shown on the
elevation.
engineer plan, the depth of it. So they'll be above the groundwater significantly.
I know we just had that saltwater pool in the last hearing. We were asking for everything to be trucked out. Where it's that close.
Right, if the
I would rather
board,
see it, any kind of a drawdown be trucked out. I mean, if we had a lot of separation, that's one thing. And I'm not talking from the groundwater itself. We're right up against this resource area.
Understandable?
it's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
We can agree to that condition.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions from the public? None? Drew, anything else you want to add?
Nothing else to add. I think that just quick comments on the proposed increase in square footage is minor. Obviously, the entire lot is pre-existing non-conforming, so, and I've been out there enough times to know every last square inch of this lot. So I believe it meets any kind of waiver criterion, given the very minor increase in footprint, and that not being any closer to the closest area to resource area setbacks, and the amount of mitigation that's being offered up, which is substantial, far above and beyond what we would normally. It exceeds the 2-to-1 ratio. It's a 3-to-1 ratio. And one of the other things, I didn't put this in my comments, but I feel it would be something that would be worth conditioning, is that when it comes to, if the commission approves this, when it comes to the reconstruction of the pool and patio in the area where it's closest to the top of Coastal Bank, that there be monitoring reports submitted to the Concom, to the Conservation Department, that there be additional oversight for that portion of construction, given the immediate setback from top of Coastal Bank in that area, and ACEC, and just the general, construction overreach in that. Do we know if that is going to be like any heavy machinery back there in terms, or is it handwork or small machinery? Do you know how
Yeah,
that's going to be addressed?
To remove that,
That's an
that
excavator.
concrete slab, it is going to be an
It's gonna be
excavator.
Excavator, okay. So that's why I want to have condition of construction
Yeah,
oversight
yeah,
and weekly reports for that. Yeah. Close setback, right on top of the Coastal Bank.
It's right there.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
In addition to the other conditions that
Yes.
I've already
Yep.
outlined.
Okay. I would accept a motion if there is one.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, make a motion for Jack Foster, Allison Poole Foster, and Lawrence E. Foster, 31 Wheelhouse Lane, for a close and issue with conditions of a submission of a 3-year signed contract between the owner and a qualified professional to monitor and maintain all mitigation plantings. Any pool water drawdown be done by pump truck. Any restored lawn areas must meet standards under Regulation 31s and documentation provided to staff. And the last condition is weekly monitoring reports for pool and patio construction.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Marjorie. Discussion amongst the commissioners for the motion that we have on the floor. Aaron, you all set?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
With the cookie, yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
Thank you. I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from the next hearing.
Okay,
I've known the Leadhams for a number of years.
thank you, Steve. Now calling the 6:15 hearing for Timothy Leadham, trustee, Osprey Island Nominee Trust, 71 Monomoskoye Road. Proposed raise and replace single-family dwelling, hardscaping, landscaping, and mitigation plantings. Representative, Cape and Islands Engineering. This is a notice of intent. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, again, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant Osprey Island Nominee Trust. So the project, this project tonight is located at 71 Monomoskoye Road in Mashpee. Actually, Joe, could you go back to the other picture? Sure. This is a very unique property. So the work area is within the green circle you see. The access actually comes, I'll start at the house, yes, it comes along the rear of those properties over an easement to the parcel itself is 9.2 acres. All that land between the yellow line and the red line is part of this property. However, the work is contained to that green circle. The resource areas on site is the land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. There is, and it's delineated on the plan, salt marsh around this high point where the existing house sits, as well as a BVW line, and the entire property is in the VE 13 floodplain. Little history, the house itself, the existing house, was built back in the 30s, and there was recently an approved order of conditions back in 2018 that had the causeway you see there, and if you did visit the site, that work has been complete per that order of conditions from 2018 which was actually extended. It is still valid till May of 2024. The work, the grading work in gray there, and the hatch has been completed. The small little turnaround is completed, as well as up near the house. Yes, that bulkhead is installed now, as well as the 20-foot section of pier has been reconstructed per the previously approved plan. And what that plan also included was a proposed 20 by 36 detached garage from the existing house. What the previous plan did not include was rebuilding the existing house. So what we have tonight is a proposal to raise the existing house and build a new house in the footprint as shown on this plan, which will be built on piles. It will meet the regulations for construction in a velocity zone. It will allow water to go under the house in the event of a storm event. A velocity zone of 13 means the lowest horizontal member of this house has to be 2 feet above the 13 elevation. So, you have the piles, you have beams, that lower part of that beam is required to be at that elevation, which then creates a finished floor of 16.65 for the dwelling. There is overall, the living space of the new dwelling will be slightly smaller than the existing dwelling. On the plan, there's some dotted lines. Those are the existing dwelling. There are areas of some deck, minor projections of what's there, but there's also areas that are being pulled back from the existing development. We feel the upgrade of this property, which would be fully susceptible to any sort of storm that could create waves, anywhere near this V-zone elevation. By removing that, replacing it with the new flood-compliant structure, again, some minor increases in deck area only, the house itself, living space, footprint will be reduced. A couple just other things that in the previous proposal, the accessory building that's physically on the coastal bank is now going to be proposed to be removed and restored per the restoration plan. The plans do calculate mitigation. The table has the existing development. So the existing development in the table is the existing property prior to both of these approvals. And what we did is, since we'll basically have two open order conditions, we combined everything together, which created the mitigation requirements that you see on the plans. A required mitigation of about 4,300 square feet, which we're providing about 4,800 square feet, as well as it was a very detailed restoration plans, and there's a lot of all these mitigation areas and restoration areas are shown. In the previous approval, all that restoration will still be done. It includes removal of some wood debris in these different areas. All that previous restoration areas from the previous filing will also be included. So total mitigation and restoration, we have about 8,200 square feet. I'm just gonna see if I touched everything. Again, under the house, the majority of the surface will be just stone, gravel. We are proposing in the northerly corner of the house, under one of the decks, a pervious paver, that hatch right there. A pervious paver area that could be used for just some storage of outdoor equipment, a kayak or something like that. That could be used for that. The rest of it, the entire house right now is vertical walls that, technically will be replaced with piles. So significant amount of linear footage of vertical walls will be removed as part of this reconstruction. And, we feel that by raising this house, putting it on piles, even with the minor additional decking in a couple areas, we feel it's a significant improvement over the existing house from the 30s, and it provides both should reduce wave action associated with this property. Technically, it does provide more flood storage, as well as turns a lot of the site from floodwater, so turns a lot of the site from impervious essentially to pervious areas under the house. There is an existing Title V septic system with an IA treatment unit, and the last thing is there is an existing walkway that connects the front door of the front being towards the water to the existing deck, and we're just slightly modifying that, but that is included in the new mitigation calculations. That I think it's an existing 3-foot walk is going to 4-foot just to connect the two decks together. Again, we do feel it's a net improvement for the property, and feel it does meet the standards within the Wetland Protection Act and the Town of Mashpee regulations. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. I'll open it up first to other commissioners that would like to ask questions or comment.
I just have a quick question on the accessory building. I didn't quite follow you. I know you're taking it out. Are you replacing it somewhere else on the property?
No, it's
No.
just going to be removed, and that area will be restored and established. It is the coastal bank itself, so
Right.
care will be taken to get that reestablished as necessary. We just felt that was another improvement to the project. If the board would like it to stay, we'll let it stay, but we did feel removing that
No,
from the bank.
I was hoping I was hearing you correctly.
It just was not proposed to be removed under the 2018 permit. So we do feel it's an improvement by removing it, and yet another improvement from the previously proposed project.
Thank you.
Anything else, Marjorie? All set?
You know, is kosher to ask about the ownership here? I'm just curious. Is this a public or a 501c3 property, or is it a private property?
It's a private residence.
It's a private residence. That's all.
Sandy? Aaron, do you have any questions or comments?
No.
She said no.
Missed that one, sorry. Okay. Mark, help me out. I'm going through the history of all of this, because much of what was done, certainly I was not here, so I'm not familiar with. I know there's an open order of conditions, DEP 43-2956, that's been extended and valid until May 2nd, 2024. So was the intent on that proposal to use the footprint of the existing structure that was going to come down, and this two-bay garage was going to go up in its place?
The intent was the house was going to remain, and then a standalone detached garage would be built in that location.
But it was never constructed, obviously. I mean, I
Correct.
wasn't there the other day. I walked around.
Correct, and we're kind of infusing this new layout in to include that
Right.
garage.
So now the intent is to use the footprint of the building to construct a house and a garage.
Essentially, if, Drew, could you zoom in on the house itself? Particularly the bottom half of the house. See the dark dotted lines?
Yes.
You know, that is the footprint of the existing house. And then there's another set of dashed lines. That was the previously approved garage. So the new house is the thick with the double line. Yeah, that's the edge of the deck. And then internal to that is the new house. In the southern end, on the bottom of the plan, where actually the footprint of the house is being reduced in both the bottom direction and towards the water. See the difference between, yeah, in that area. So I'm not quite sure what your question is, but yeah, it's all one structure now. It's a house on piles, it's deck on piles, generally in the same footprint. You know, there is there's two portions of deck that are, you know, technically out on the left side of that plan. You see the circle with the three trees? You know, that is new, left from there. Yeah, so, you know, there's a small portion of deck right there that's new, and then the deck in the corner above that is essentially everywhere else. You know, within a few square feet is new deck and house that will be to current flood code, and yes, but the entire structure will kind of envelop where that detached garage would be.
And what is the construction configuration of the garage? I mean, are those vertical walls with flood vents in them? Or?
Yes, it would be, actually, it's on piles as well. There's a, I don't know if breakaway is the correct wall term, but it's walls that will allow flow through, that lower level. There is living space above. So since there's living space above, it's proposed to be on piles, but with, there's a certain strength on the wall. Per building code, you can have walls, but they're designed to move or allow the water to go in on the garage level. So where you see proposed garage finished floor 9, that's strictly a storage area. You can park vehicles in those areas. But it is supported, the living space above is supported by piles. So technically, it's a pile structure.
Well, in looking at the history of the project, and again, I wasn't on the commission for any of these approvals. I'm just looking at what's here now, and what I'm seeing is, on the site today, there is a pre-existing house that goes way back. I forget the date, but it's old. And there's a garage that was approved back in 2018 under 2956, under that number. So what I'm getting at is, how are you using the footprint of a legally permitted structure? How are you using it twice? You're using it now to build a house and a garage that was never there. And we are in the velocity zone, and this kind of harks back to a lot of stuff that's in Regulation 25 that says garages in a velocity zone. I mean, we went through this on another hearing a short while ago, and I'm having a hard time seeing a lot of new structure that doesn't have a setback.
We're improving an existing structure.
You are.
We're not, the reason we actually almost filed an amended order, but at the suggestion of staff, since we are tearing this house down, that is why we're here with a new notice of intent. It's just, all the other stuff is part of the existing order of conditions that's valid. But we're here, basically, the intent of this new order of condition is to tear down the structure from 1937 that is completely susceptible to a large storm event, and replace it with a new flood-compliant structure. Again, overall, the footprint of the living footprint is being reduced from existing house has 2,400 square feet of living space footprint, and the proposed house is only about 2,000. So overall, including some deck area, there is an increase, which we are providing mitigation for. But again, floodwaters can come and go versus slamming into the existing house. Unlike other ones that I've presented, we're not putting a pool out in the front. We're just replacing this house with, again, modest changes to footprint, to habitable space. There are some decks being added, but generally in the footprint of the house. So that the foundation of the existing house, it'll have to come out. It'll be restored with gravel at grade. We're not proposing any fill. We're not proposing any kind of regrading. I can't picture if is there a basement in the house right now?
I'm Tim Leadham, the trustee.
Sure. Would you like to come up at the microphone so people can hear?
My name is Tim Leadham. I'm the trustee of the property, and my wife Chris with me here this evening. And yes, the house currently has a full stand-up basement underneath half of the property. Half of the house is a full basement. And then there's crawl space under the other half. And question as to some of the history here, I got a lot of guidance from both engineering, architect, from the departments within the town for planning this out, which is going to be our retirement home. We've been here in town since 1984. And the steps that we took on this, not knowing whether we can work with the existing house exactly as it is or have to do a raise on it, not knowing that at the time, we were advised to get the permitting back first in 15 and then in 18, using the existing house. We had the request for the garage, which was approved, and then to handle those areas of the property which improved the access point into the property. And having done that, and now being ready to move on in our personal timetable on things and to make use of the property, full-time, it's now been determined that the best course of action, because of the nature of the structure, because of flood zone requirements, and being able to get things to go under and not be able to do enough of the improvements with an existing basement underneath. I would love not to have to give up a basement. A basement's a nice thing to have. But based on guidelines, regulations as explained to me, and professional input, and involving people in the different sections of the town, the different departments of the town, the approach to the property, the approach now is to use the existing footprint of the house and use the pre-existing approval on the garage and do the thing the best way, the most right way, in one shot. And that's, I thought we were also doing a modified NOI, but in consultation with Cape and Islands, and I believe with your department, I don't know, I was not part of the details, it was advised to have this as a new NOI request, and that's where we are now.
Drew, I'm going to ask you a question. We would have to close the order of conditions that's current, correct? You can't have two orders open on the same property.
So you have a current open order of conditions that was for the garage, right?
We do.
That was
Correct.
extended? Yeah, I mean, so if that order isn't going to be followed up on or actually be concluded, whatever word you want to use for it, it has to be closed out through a certificate of compliance. That's in our regs. If you have an outstanding order that, I mean, it's still valid. So I guess the question is, why keep it open? If it's not germane to anything that you're doing under this new notice, what value is it serving? What purpose is it serving?
I mean, this plan in front of you does have all of the details. It lists them as previously approved, restoration areas as previously approved. I don't see why there would be an issue with that.
I mean, typically that provision in our bylaw that we changed was for permits that were expired and not closed out. This is an active permit, so it's a little bit of a different situation. But nonetheless,
I don't think you can have two orders of condition
right,
running simultaneously for the same property.
right.
That's
That
a
would be,
state
yeah, I get where he's coming from with this. If it's not serving any purpose and you're not following up on that specific order of conditions, even though I understand you're referencing it and it's open, it's not serving any purpose in the face of this current proposal. So it makes sense to close it out. You're going to have to close it out eventually, no matter what. If you're proposing nothing at all, you still have to close it out eventually. So it makes sense to just,
Or if there was something that is in that current order of conditions that you want to incorporate into this new NOI. Like, I looked at the pier, there's some work being done on that pier. I don't know that it's finished. It says on this that it's finished, but I don't think it is it?
The decking is not finished, the structure is finished, and then the contractor needed to go back to another project for a few weeks. The decking is scheduled to be finished next week.
Right. And was there beach nourishment that went in that 2018 order?
Yes,
And that wasn't done?
some of it's been done.
Yeah, so I think it'd be, you know, it would be a partial, we'd list exactly what was done, it'd be a partial COC request.
On the main causeway coming in, we had some, I don't know what the form of the beach grass, but there was going to be a little crown put in and some beach grass on that part where the bulkhead is. That hasn't been done yet. The first causeway has all been done. Drew's been out to the site.
One of the things that I would suggest, just in the face of having two open orders and the work not being completed under that previous order as far as beach nourishment and the dock, you could make a condition if you were to approve this, that no construction will commence until that order is complete, the work is complete, and then closed out through a certificate of compliance, thus allowing you to proceed with this order of conditions should the commission grant it. That's the best solution I would have. You know, we don't like to do partial COCs, it gets complicated. I'd rather avoid it if possible. So that's my solution or recommendation to that situation.
Would that, can I have a question?
Yep.
Would that mean that I would have, or we would have a conditional approval with the garage footprint included in the new NOI so that if we're closing out the current NOI without building the garage, I just don't want to get caught in the middle? Because the entire design is incorporating, you know, we're reducing the current footprint of the current house.
Right.
And if we get caught in the middle, then we're, something that we've owned for a long time, we've been planning for a long time, all of a sudden doesn't become feasible with what we already have for approvals. So I'm just looking for guidance, how do we bridge that? If I can get guidance on how we bridge it,
The only thing I can really comment to that is that, you know, it was approved before, which means it met the standards of the Wetlands Protection Act based on the commission's issuance of an order of conditions for that standalone garage. If the commission is agreeable to, you know, issue an order of conditions for this contingent upon closing out the existing order, then it would basically be, you know, up to the commission's discretion, knowing that a garage was previously approved and met the standards, to take that into account with this new notice of intent. It's not a grandfather situation. If you don't construct it, then you don't construct it under that old order. You're now proposing something that's attached to the home, so you can't use a previous order to say, I am grandfathered as this, but it hasn't been built yet. So that's, am I understanding this correctly? You're looking at
well, I
me
may
like
not be asking, I'm looking for the proper guidance in order to handle this, because I'd rather not build the current garage with the dimension we're currently approved,
Well,
because
understood.
we're giving up house dimension to offset the 3 feet which was separating. So we're reducing the footprint, but if I don't see how I don't want to get caught in the middle. I think I'm just looking for guidance, how do we not get caught in the middle?
Drew, can I ask you a question? Why can't we take that first order and make it, as you're saying, a condition of approval of this, the current NOI, right? So that I see nothing that violates the bylaws or the regs for them to run concurrently until they complete the first piece of it, close it down, and that could be in our conditioning, so that they can then move on to everything that they've included in this NOI. But I can see what the homeowner is saying, that you don't want to get stuck in the middle and say, yeah, you can, you know, the first one exists, but the second one is going to be somehow messed up if we don't recognize it outright. But I don't see any conflict in having them run parallel tracks in one approval, close down the first once you've completed that piece of it, which in my world would be the garage that's going to be attached to the NOI too. And then he wouldn't be in this limbo. I can sense that place that you'd be in. You go, wait a minute. I tried to do it right. What did I do wrong?
Exactly.
Yes.
Can I go back to you, Paul? Could you let me know, I mean, which, I'm fully vetted on Regulation 25 now. Could you nail down exactly which section you believe, we're not meeting and, identify why or, or just follow up on your concerns? Is it a concern big enough to not approve this project? I don't know if I can ask that question, but, I would like some further detail and then be able to just respond to what you're.
We're in the middle of editing out Regulation 25, but under velocity zone, which would have been number 4, I believe the old 4. When alterations within the A zone of LSCSF within 100 feet of a coastal water body, the following shall apply. And it refers to vertical walls. Wave energy during a storm event reflecting off a vertical wall is directed downward, and sediments supporting such a wall are likely to be eroded. That's why I was asking about the wall structure for the garage. So when you have vertical walls in a velocity zone, even though you have flood vents, you've got a lot of issues that are going on. So I know in previous proposals, we've seen garages that have been up on pilings completely. But this one was not. This is, I don't have any schematic here on the plan that you gave us, but you did say they were vertical walls.
So, the existing house, I don't have a linear footage of the existing house, but it, just gonna create a rectangle out of it. It's approximately 50 feet long by 30 feet wide. So 50, 50, 30, there's almost 200 linear feet of existing house that vertical walls that's being removed. The previously approved garage was probably standard construction at another 20 by 30 linear feet. We're up over 300 linear feet of vertical wall being removed for a house on no vertical walls. We're going almost to a net reduction to 0 vertical walls. The garage walls, again, are built to withstand just a certain amount of water pressure, and they will allow water in. It's just a significant improvement related to vertical walls. So we feel we meet that section of the bylaw.
There's no doubt in my mind that it's a significant improvement. But as I read Regulation 25, and it references garages in velocity zones, I have some concerns.
Just, so your Regulation 25, Bullet 6, a proposed project within a velocity zone of a beach, dune, barrier beach, coastal bank shall not destroy or otherwise. And it goes on to prohibit those uses of a beach. I honestly believe that's actually a typo. It should say on a beach, dune, barrier beach, coastal bank. This structure is not on or of any of those: beach, dune, barrier beach, coastal bank. And therefore, I believe F, G, H, I, J are not applicable to this house. I just do not believe we don't meet, again, the velocity zone sections of your Regulation 25. also given the improvement to the project, which you've just confirmed, you feel it's improvement.
I don't have anything further to say. I mean, I'm reading the regulations. That's all I'm doing. I didn't write them, but I can read them. So I guess the first and most important thing to do is to clean up the paperwork. I just don't see us being able to proceed with a notice of intent without cleaning up the original order of conditions that's outstanding. Something has to be done with that paperwork. Whether you want to blend the two together, I don't know what kind of a motion will be made. But that
Why
has to
can't,
be,
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
that has to be addressed.
Are you done?
Yes.
You're done. Why can't we, on this NOI, close an issue with a condition that the pre-existing, I don't know how we want to say this, the pre-existing approval of the first order be completed and/or closed? I mean, I think we have the authority to do that, right?
Well,
And I think the owner is concerned that if we close it,
I can only say that, in the absence of a violation or any other compelling reason to require the closing of an order of conditions, you can't require someone to close an order of conditions. If it's open, it's open. It's up to them when they want to close it.
no,
Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it well. What I meant was that as a condition of our approval of this particular NOI, that we reference it.
Yeah,
Just
that was
like
my
we-
suggestion, was to.
Is that,
To,
how would you word it?
You would create a condition, if you would approve this current notice of intent, you would have a condition that clearly states that the existing open order and any work related thereto must be completed prior to commencement of any work under this current proposal.
See how
And
much more
therefore,
articulate
it
you
would be
are?
completed, and you would close it out because you would accomplish everything that's under that order.
Yeah.
So you would have it clean and ready to go. It's just not that way right now. They haven't gotten to
Right.
those final pieces. And that would take care of the housekeeping issue. And you would ensure that that would be done prior to any commencement of
Right.
any other activity that you would approve tonight, if you were to
I
approve.
think that would be a much cleaner way to go. Mr. Chairman, if you're not, if that alleviates any of your concerns about the open order,
Well, would
I don't
it,
see how we can do it if it's not connected. It's the same property.
would it include the construction of the garage that's in the current order of conditions? How
Well,
do
I
you get
believe-
around that?
Correct me if I'm wrong.
So
but I-
you would,
Go ahead.
I can answer that. When they go to do a certificate of compliance inspection, they would simply state that portion of the project was not completed. And it would simply be superseded by, if you were to approve this, the new garage footprint. That's happened in the past. COCs can recognize any aspect of a project that wasn't completed as long as it's in the sign-off letter from the engineer who created the plan.
But what I don't want to have is two orders of conditions
course
running
not.
concurrent. I mean, it's just, that becomes a real potential issue.
Well, I think that Drew has said in a much more clear and legally sound way what I was trying to imply. I think we'd be on solid ground. And to do otherwise, one more argument for that, to do otherwise would seem to be unnecessarily complicating the issue by having the homeowner have to then go through two applications. Well, close down one because you can't really do it. It just seems that they should be joined. Same property, overlapping issues, and I think Drew has recommended a way that it can be done sequentially.
Okay? Anything else? Then I would accept a motion.
Where's Steve when I need him? I'm happy to make a motion with the understanding that our agent will correct me if I haven't said it properly, but I move to close and issue property at 71 Monomoskoye for Timothy Leedon, trustee of the Osprey Island Nominee Trust, with the condition of submission of a 3-year signed contract between the homeowner and a qualified professional to monitor and maintain mitigation plantings. Any and all restored areas must meet standards under Regulation 31 and documentation thereof provided to staff. And with the condition that the existing, I don't know if we want to say pre-existing order,
Existing order of conditions.
the existing order of conditions be satisfied prior to the commencement? Is that what you said, Drew? With apologies to the commission.
Well, my suggestion was that the condition be worded as such that no part of this this proposal can commence until the existing other order of condition is completed and closed out through a certificate of compliance.
That's exactly what I was saying. Did you get that? Did you get the wording of that? No. For the purpose of this motion, so moved with that language of our agent.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. So now we have a motion on the floor for discussion amongst commissioners. I'll open that up. Anything? Aaron?
Oh, I'm all set, thank you.
So set. Okay. Hearing no further discussion, I'll take a roll call vote. Marjorie?
Yes?
Sandy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I vote no, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now calling the 6:18 hearing for Southward Mashpee Properties LLC, 130 Willow Bend Drive. This is a proposed maintenance pruning of trees and vegetation on a golf course fairway. Representative Baxter Nye Engineering and Surveying. This is an RDA. Good evening, gentlemen.
How's everyone tonight? For the record, Matthew Eddy, professional engineer with Baxter Nye Engineering and Surveying, representing Southworth Mashpee Properties. With me is Matt Cladis. So you have two Matts tonight. Matt is the golf course manager for the Willow Bend Country Club. The filing before you tonight is an RDA request for cutting and trimming as necessary for to keep safe view for the golf course hole identified as bog number 9. Obviously, the golf hole has existed for, I don't know, probably, what, 20-plus years as far as the...
It was built 86 and 87.
Yeah, so
Somewhere in there.
Over 30 years. Obviously, over time, the vegetation has grown up, and Willow Bend needs to trim back that vegetation so that you have safe view and continued play of the hole. And just real quick, and then I'm going to let Matt walk through what he would like to accomplish as far as the methods and so forth. But this is the existing tee box. This is the stream location approximately here. So this area falls within the riverfront area. This tee is about approximately 100 feet or so from the river, and then the fairway starts at about in this area, it's probably about 150 feet. So it's this area that needs to be trimmed out. Again, it's all upper story of the vegetation. There's nothing being cut down at the base. There's significant off of that tee box. There's significant topography. The bank drops, 35 to 50 feet down to the riverbed. So you have the trees, the lower portion of the trees will all be maintained, and it's just to allow safe view for when you're up on the tee box and getting ready to take your shot. So with that, I'm going to just pass it over to Matt, and he can describe, the process that they want to use for this. I know he's reviewed it with Drew previously as well. And with that, I'll turn it over to Matt.
Yep, one thing I did want to add too is that right at the bottom of the blue, there are teeing areas up top, and there are teeing areas below on the bottom of the hill, which is just below the white cart path. Yep, so right in there are additional tee boxes there that right now, if you are on the top ones, you can't see if anybody is there below. So what we'd like to do is selective pruning and tree topping, so we can gain view back to that corridor and see the fairway and safely see the tees below.
With that, I think would be, turn it back over to the commission and answer any questions that you have.
Didn't we do this a couple years ago? Same tee?
I don't think so, no.
I thought
Not that I was
there were
involved
golf
in.
carts, and we were up on that elevated tee, and where the carts were coming around.
That was probably when we were going through some prior cutting in the golf course, and we went around and we
Maybe
looked at,
We might have discussed it.
we looked at and we discussed this one that,
It's the same spot, right?
Same spot.
we looked at it, right, but it wasn't, I think at that point, it was discussed at some point in the future, that's where we were talking about,
We'd like
we
to
were
do
kind
it.
of setting up the
In
hierarchy
fact,
of different
We were talking
events.
about it, and somebody came along in the cart, and we couldn't even see it. They disappeared behind the
Yep.
trees.
Very
And you said,
clever.
that's exactly what we're worried about. I remember that.
It's like that Chevy Chase movie. He's selling the house. You remember the one where the deer comes running across at a perfect time?
So one of the questions I would have is, and it's probably a hard one to answer, how much of the top of these trees have to come off? I guess it depends on the slope, right?
It does depend on the slope, and we'll try to keep as much greenery as possible and just take what's needed.
How many of the trees are involved?
Oh, there's
Well, yeah, it's that whole swath.
the whole, kind of the whole
The
corridor.
whole family, yeah?
Yeah, if you can see right there, that bottom picture, we
Yeah.
kind of almost need to look right through there into the green, into the background, into the greenish area into the
Do
background.
we have a thing here on how wide that is?
Yeah, that, the exhibit there, Drew, that shows the two lines.
The yellow lines?
For the,
Oh, your,
yeah, the exhibit in the
Corridor
filing.
there.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Yep. And that's probably, the width of that, I'm approximating here, but probably about 50 feet or so, maybe a little bit better.
It
50
narrows
out to
at the top
75
tee
maybe,
boxes,
at the
Right.
far end,
and then
Have you
it
been out there?
kind of widens
many
up.
times.
Many, many times?
Yeah,
I
I'm
couldn't find it.
I've played
because
this
I don't
course
golf
numerous
that much.
times, so I know the tee. When I played the course last fall, I did notice
Yeah.
you couldn't see
Yeah.
much of the fairway, so.
It's,
Yeah.
and in the
That's-
last 5 years, the trees have grown significantly, and we've lost a lot of view.
And I think I would just add too is, when this cutting is done, obviously you want to do enough cuttings where it's down somewhat so that it's not, they're back here in 2 years and then have to get out there and do it again. And it's better to take, not excessively, obviously, but enough to provide, I don't know, whatever makes sense to the commission, but, maybe 5 years and then they have to come back in 5
Come
years,
back again.
something like that. Yeah.
Typically, when you're topping trees, which you see a lot of utility companies do along the power lines,
Right.
you change that, and it does require repeated pruning, but eventually the tree is going to start
Start to-
growing laterally rather than vertically. So you see those Vs that come out over the
Yeah.
utility lines,
Yeah.
that's repeated pruning
Yeah.
to train the tree to grow in that pattern, basically. So, yeah, that makes sense to have it repeated every so often. as necessary.
You know, and then as far as if it, again, makes sense to the commission and to staff, that, you know, staff could meet out there with Willow Bend, you know, prior to and just at the start of, to really kind of, okay, here's what we're going to be doing, and, because it is going to have to be a field
Yeah.
fit, if you will,
Right.
as you're doing it, just to make sure that Drew and staff is on the same page with Willow Bend, and they stay within the guidelines of what is expected.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that, I know that they will, but we just want to make sure that everybody is on the same page, you know?
Well, it's actually a safety issue.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Right.
And would there be a plan to replace trees that die from excessive pruning?
I mean, there wasn't.
That's something we could look at if that's the case, because some of these, and that's a good point, because some of these trees, go better in the other image here, you've got some white pine. When you top white pine, chances are your
they might-
days
yeah,
are numbered,
yeah.
because you're just cutting out most of the foliage and the regenerative portion of the tree, so.
We kind of talked about
If
that.
that's, if, you know, standing dead wood is definitely a habitat value, you know, over time, but if it does eventually come down, I think we can look at doing maybe some restorative ground cover in that area or something to
Yep.
mitigate
Yeah.
for that circumstance.
Could you put in a slow-growing tree, like a eastern cedar or
Something
something
that
like
wouldn't
that?
grow very tall.
Yeah.
Yeah,
something-
Just to provide more biomass in the
Yeah.
absence of that.
More diversity for the wildlife, yeah.
Yep.
But would it make sense, though, to not, you know, not go in and plant anything right now? You wait until, I mean.
No,
if-
it'll be a wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, and again, depending on timing of, you know, if a tree is going to die, is it 2 years, is it 3 years? Maybe as we were kind of mentioned, that 5-year time period, if that's acceptable,
Right.
that's, you know, it's looked at again, and maybe that could even be made, I know, well, in RDA, I know you can't condition, but we have the, kind of the outline of the process for just the golf course maintenance overall. So, I mean, something along those lines,
The
whatever
other thing
makes
too, when
sense.
it comes to pines, which you do have quite a bit of, you've got pitch and white pine in this corridor, is that when you're cutting during the warm season months, that pitch is gonna keep coming out, and that's gonna attract borer beetles. So you need to figure out a solution for that, to address that possibility. I don't know what your timeline is, I'm assuming you wanna get this done sooner than later, but if
I
you're
don't
gonna do
think
it
it's
during
gonna
the summer
happen this year.
months. Huh?
I don't think it's going to happen
Okay.
in '23.
So then I would coordinate it in, you know, in the winter when
Yeah,
the temps are below
I
40
think
degrees.
winter
so you
of
don't encounter
'24,
that.
early '24, January, February.
Okay. Yeah, wintertime, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's to the point now with the season and so forth that it has to wait.
Yeah, you don't want to create another problem.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I was curious, what cutting techniques are you using? Using pole pruners and climbers, or using?
Yeah, they'll probably use climbers and pole pruners, and some, you know, extended power saws, you know,
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah, it's not good. I just wanted to make sure there's like no dingoes or anything like
No.
that. So, all right, cool.
Okay. I would accept a motion if there is one.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, make a motion for Southworth Mashpee Properties LLC, 130 Willow Bend Drive, for negative determination, and just coordinate with staff during the commencement of the work.
Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion by commissioners? Hearing none, I'll take a roll call vote. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I vote yes as well.
Great.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Y'all have a
guys.
good evening.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, I've got one last bit of housekeeping here. Bear with me. Some agendas do not have this on it, but some do. We had a 621 hearing for Paul J. and Catherine M. Thurston, 25 Menemsha Road. Perhaps recall this project. I just want to read into the record, by written notice submitted to the commission on April 13th, the applicant has formally withdrawn this proposal. Thus, there is no request for action presently pending before the commission, and this matter will accordingly be closed without further action by the commission. And I would also accept a motion to accept the withdrawal notice.
So moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you, Marjorie. Any discussion? Hearing none. Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I vote yes as well, motion carries, so that cleans up that piece of work. That would take us back to pre- and post-hearing agenda items. You have Drew's comments on all of these, unless there's something, Drew, you wanted to add, or if there's some question about any of these.
I wanted to just allow Dan to update everybody on the Mashpee River Woodland Surveil modifications.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I was working with New England Mountain Biking Association, and they just finished the trail yesterday. All they're waiting on now is just some gravel to come in, and they'll spread a couple yards of gravel, and the trail will be stabilized completely. So now from the Quiniquisette parking lot for the Mashpee Woodlands, you can not have to walk down the steepest slope in the world, risking breaking yourself. You can actually go
That's
a
right.
zigzag down the whole thing. And also the erosion patterns are gonna be better, and it will give us an opportunity to rebuild those stairs in the future to stabilize the rest of it.
So it's like a miniature Grand Canyon trail.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah,
Pretty
those
much.
steps were tough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're looking into having those steps not replaced, because they're really set in stone, I don't wanna have to disturb them.
Yeah.
Just building over them, basically, a set of steps just going over them down the slope. Only on certain sections, not the whole slope.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Good.
it's pretty bad, as you've probably seen.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
And
Down the
just-
end of my street.
What was the end result with the request by Eversource for the, they wanted a survey plot or something?
Yeah,
They wanted a survey plan because of the original proposal to cut through the guardrail.
Right,
But that's no longer part of this. They were able to figure out a different way.
so they just
Didn't really
dropped that request.
involve-
yeah, they ended up going along the side of the guide rail. Didn't have to cut it at all, didn't affect Eversource's easement, so we're,
Yep. Yeah, worked out for everybody in the end.
Great.
I did have just one other final item. I'm sure most of you are aware that there's been, severe issues with fish passage at Santuit Pond at the fish ladder. This year's no exception. We're seeing repeated washback of herring, and it just seems like the run's getting busier every year. Thankfully, with the Mashpee Wampanoag grant funding to install a video counter, which was installed last year and is again installed this year, we're going to see, it'll really provide hard data on the amount of fish that are passing, given how many are gathered up at the base of the ladder. So we're hoping that that data will help to really move things along in terms of addressing this really bad issue with fish passage with the current design. So I'm going to provide all of you an email contact, and I would appreciate if everyone would take the time to write a letter of support for a redesign or the urgency of this situation, because to have a run as prolific as Santuit and have an inability for the majority of fish, I believe, to get into the pond, and it's opening up to predation as they gather in higher and higher numbers at the base of the ladder, is just a tragic
That's so sad.
situation. And it needs to be, there needs to be pressure brought upon the powers that be on this design to get it addressed.
It's fixed.
Just year after year, we're being told we're working on it, and nothing happens. And it's painful to assign counters to this location and then hear them say, none of the fish are getting up, they're
They're
all
not
there,
getting
and
through.
I'm not getting counts. And it's just it's an awful situation to deal with, and I can't stand dealing with it anymore. I'd really like to get this
Been
addressed.
talking about it for a few years now.
It's just an ongoing conversation, and, the last thing that happened was NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, sent people out there, design experts, and there was an agreement on what the conceptual approach was gonna be, and then nothing, radio silence after that, and so it's gotta,
So do you give us in the email, make sure you give us how.
I'll give you a synopsis of.
To whom we're supposed to address it, though.
Yeah, and I'll give you just a kind of summary background so you can base your letter on that information, the
Right.
timeline, up to this point. But it's
That's
just
so
a source of
sad.
frustration that just is
Really?
really, there's no reason why it can't be addressed in a redesign. So,
One of several reasons the population is going down.
exactly.
Yeah,
They don't need an
Fix this
impediment at the
one.
last stretch.
Yeah. This one can be addressed.
Especially one that was intended to ease their passage and is doing just the
Right.
opposite, so.
we're also having issues with birds finding new zones to hunt. So
Right.
cormorants, I counted 32 there this afternoon. Not even diving, just waiting for the fish to come up. And cormorants are fantastic hunters. They have an amazing success rate. So, but at the bottom of the pool every day, you can see between 500 to 1,000 just sitting at the bottom of the pool.
No way.
And between 30 to 50 trying to jump up, and I don't know, 15, 20 of them getting smacked down every single time.
It appears that like up to 50% just get washed back
Yeah.
down. And that just tires them out. Eventually, they're going to stop
course.
trying to ascend the ladder because of exhaustion.
Yeah.
So it's a situation that's really urgent. And
If you like birds of prey, it's the best time to watch them right now.
Yeah,
I
get
will
some
say
good
that.
pictures.
Yeah. And that's it. No other comments.
Ospreys are getting fat.
Okay.
Predator field day.
Oh, my God, yeah, we're hitting all my favorite things.
Any additional topics before I call for adjournment? None? I'll take a motion then to sadly adjourn.
Okay, so moved.
Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none? Steve?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes, sir.
Sandy?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. We are adjourned.
Great, thank you.
Yay.
Everybody.
Good job,
Good night, Aaron.
everybody.
I got paperwork,
Thank you.
and then I have one form, I'm